the Rural Government Accounting Commission member.
Preparations are in top gear for the conduct of elections for local government chairmen and councillors in the 17 local government areas of Plateau State, scheduled for Wednesday, October the 9th, 2024.
Organized by Plateau State Independent.
Addressing political party officials, security chiefs, civil society organizations and aspirants on the level of preparedness by the Electoral Commission, Chairman of the State Independent Electoral Commission announced the novel ideal voter verification system, which is similar to bimodal voter verification system.
This election will also mark a significant milestone in the history of PLASIEC, as we are introducing electronic components for the first time, including a state-of-the-art voter verification software developed exclusively by our ICT team in collaboration with the DG PIDA. This innovation is designed to ensure that only eligible voters can cast their votes, a crucial step towards making sure that the voices of Plateau people are heard and respected. Massive infrastructural investment has been made to cater for the effective deployment of this innovation.
The Police Commissioner in Plateau State, Mr. Emmanuel Adeshino, assures that security of life and property, including electoral materials, is guaranteed during the forthcoming polls.
We are working closely with PLASIEC. On the day of election, we are setting up ops control room to respond to all distress calls that will be coming up. And I want to assure that all the voters should come out en masse. There is assurance of safety, and there will not be any problem whatsoever on that day of election.
In a related development, the Labour Party in Plateau State, at a press briefing, denies rumours that the party has withdrawn its candidates from the elections.
I am using this medium to state that the Labour Party is contesting all positions from chairman to councillorship in the state, and that none of our candidates has stepped down for anybody. Thus, it is very appealing to hear that such unfounded information is being disseminated, which is hereby refuted vehemently.
The political parties are expected to participate in the local government elections, with 75 candidates contesting for the chairmanship positions, 788 candidates for councillorship positions across the 355 electoral wards in the state.
This afternoon, welcome back. So that was before the elections, but here we've got Mr. Planji Shishak, who is the chairman, Plateau State Independent Electoral Commission. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning.
So several scenarios in that particular report, but key of which is the partnership that you had with IFES, International Foundation for Electoral Systems, in terms of capacity building and some key introductions that came to bear in that election, particularly about this voter verification software, which seems to have caught their fancy. So even though there are criticisms about the elections and how it turned out, which we always have, could you then tell us from your perspective how you think the whole thing came out?
Yeah. Good morning, listeners. When we came 4 months ago, we were faced with critical issues. Issues bordering on the capacity of the staff, the infrastructural deficit, the lack of belief and trust in the commission because of the antecedents of the past. It was a heavy weight on the commission, and we were fortunate to have IFES, International Foundation for Electoral System, to have chosen PLASIEC as one of their 6 pilot states to engage. Some of us have been in the electoral system for about 18 years. I have worked with INEC before, and we felt that we need to come and rejig the place and restore confidence. And IFES was on ground to assist us. 2 agendas were very clear to us. 1, we needed to conduct the election once the electoral cycle is completed. In 2021, the election was conducted in 9th October 2021. And we felt if it was even a selection or coronation, at least something was done in the image or in the likeness of an election. So we said the electoral cycle ought to have been completed by 9th of October. So we said, let's start from there. And we brought out a timetable of activity with 22 activities, which we religiously followed. IFES was there and were able to give us a lot of input in terms of training and capacity building. In our part, going by history of local government elections in Plateau State, particularly 2008 election, where people lost their lives and property, we had to go on research, and we knew that it was an issue of one man, one vote, where that time there was no beavers. People will just write results and come with it. And by the time you come to collation, this one will say, you cannot accept this, you cannot accept that. So we needed something to check accreditation of voters. So we approached INEC, but the INEC has a policy on the issue of beavers. And I understand with them because of the confidence in the procedure at the local government elections. We were only given the EVR. And we said, so let us be adventurous. And God help us, we got what is called voter verification system. This is the software that we deployed in order to be able to identify whether the person who is registered is the actual person.
So now that's the key part, because we've been trying almost every election cycle to improve our elections. I mean, we all know the last time how INEC promised us you were going to be, I mean, people were of the impression that once you're voting, you know, you will see certain things being tabulated. People look forward to technology because they wanted their vote to count. Now, with this system that you do have, so let's see if this works, if it's something that we can adopt nationally. So talk to us about how that works, because at the end of the day, people always want to be sure, is this rigging proof? How did it work?
Okay. The voter verification system is a whole pact that can do what you just said. But for us, within 4 months wasn't enough for us to venture wholeheartedly into that. So we only took a component of that, and that is accreditation, to ensure that the principle of one man, one vote counts. While in the years to come, we now have some years, then we can now begin to see how we can get our own devices. Because let me say this, the difficulty of having the devices owned by the commission was very cumbersome in terms of procurement and getting. So we just use the principle of BYOD, bring your own device. People who have devices, who are university students, that have addresses, that have lecturers who know them, were the ones who deploy their own devices. So that was part of the challenge we got. They were not our devices. But in terms of the performance of that voter verification system, at the mock election, it gave us almost 100% perfection, because at the remote areas where there were no networks, the software operated even faster. And
where there was no network?
Where there was no
so
network.
What did they rely on?
Offline.
It just worked offline?
It works offline and online. And so, but when it came to the deployment at the larger scale, we had issues bordering on deployment of the ad hoc staff, where people that were trained at that level, not all of them were able to perform, to apply that. But thank God for the robust law that we had in place, which gave room for us to use technology or to use the manual. So when we had issues at the mid of the elections, we had to revert back to manual register. But that's not to say we'll discard the device, because it worked in over 10% of the polling units that we had.
How is this software different from what INEC told us and what they did with BFAS?
It's different because INEC's device, well, they call it bimodal voter accreditation
system,
and it has 3 components in it. The component of registration, that's the component of accreditation, it also has the component of deploying that. That is what I know about that. But in our own case, like I told you, it is multifaceted. But we chose to use the accreditation because 4 months is not enough for us to deploy that. There is a saying that Hausa people used to say that when you want to cross a stream, you don't enter with 2 legs. You use the first one to ascertain the depth of the river. The most interesting thing to us is that the device actually worked in few places, and we understood one of the major problems that we had were the devices that were used. We could not ascertain the nature or the capacity of those devices.
So,
secondly, the deployment of those people that use them.
So give us the picture. What is the capability, the capacity of this device if you deploy it and it's working full, at least maximum capacity?
Very well. The device has the capacity to transmit results. Transmit as in transmit
Like
results from the polling unit.
Transmit, everybody knows, not the
do not
last
refer to,
transmit
please.
that,
Do not refer
okay.
anybody. It has the capacity to transmit results. It has the capacity. In fact, let me even tell you, the EVR that we received, unfortunately, we saw from EVR that we received, we saw multiple registrants still existing, and some of the polling units, and the VVS was able to remove those names. Largely, it has the capacity to transmit, to also do accreditation. That's what we have.
I'm listening.
Yes.
I'm listening because, we've always talked about the use of technology to improve our electoral processes in Nigeria. And I'm coming up with, it's called the voter verification software.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
I mean, coming up with all these technologies, I'm curious as to how INEC received your idea.
Oh, yeah, INEC is an independent body. And
Yes.
PLASIEC is also an independent body. We collaborate in terms of, because state independent electoral commissions do not register. So we go cap in hand to receive what they have and to deploy that. But with my experience in 4 months, I think technology is the best way forward in terms of even the cost of deploying some of the materials used.
When you came up with this idea and showed it to INEC and so we want to be able to use this in the election, how did they respond to you?
No, I didn't go to, because I don't report to INEC.
So you just used it?
We use it based on the law that we have as the PLASIEC, Plateau State Independent Electoral
Has
Commission.
INEC said anything to you about the using of this software?
We
for
are
your election?
interfacing. Last week, we were in a program organized by the International Foundation of Electoral System, and some former national commissioners were there, some recs were there, and these issues came up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the major challenges that we have is to redefine the relationship between INEC and CX, particularly state independent electoral commissions that are willing to follow procedures and to ensure that the voters that vote at the grassroots count. Because once you get it at the grassroots, a lot of issues at the center will reduce, because the people actually live in those communities. They don't live in the nation, they live in the polling units, and they have councillors and they have chairmen there. So if we can get it right through the processes, I think a lot will be done. So the collaboration between the INEC and CX should be strengthened to ensure that...
You're not answering my question. I want to know, when you came up with the voter verification software that we are using as PLASIEC, we're going to use this software. Did you hear anything from INEC as to the usage?
No.
Was there any communication as to whether they think this is a good idea or a bad idea? Or was there any kind of check-in to see how it works? Was there any communication between PLASIEC and INEC in the use of this software for the Plateau local government elections?
For me, being a former staff of INEC, in Plateau, I received massive encouragement and support from the INEC at the state level. In terms of observation, there is no law that says that INEC should supervise or should superintend on the activities of local government elections. But it's the collaboration I'm talking about. I received massive collaboration, and they were able to observe and give advice on the voter verification system. And I can tell you, in terms of even the training, in terms of all those kind of
support. They gave you some advice?
Advice.
What advice?
Advice, of course, to deploy it. Okay. Encourage me on how to ensure that it perform optimally.
Well, I think part of the reason is because it's state independent electoral commissions are supposed to be independent
of the thing.
So,
and in many parts of the country, we have that conversation as to how independent states. So this is an example of how independent it is in Plateau State. I want to be able to talk to you a little bit about the software. Really, is it corruption proof? Is it not manipulatable? Because those are some of the fears that many people may have. If you're coming up with some software that you're going to be using at grassroots elections, how do we know that it's not manipulatable by political actors at that level?
Yeah. With what happened in the election, where only about 10% of the units did the accreditation, it shows that we need to work on it more in terms of its capacity and also in terms of the people who use the machine. It's not a one-off issue. I need you to also appreciate that it's within 4 months that we brought this technology. And part of it is to gain confidence of the people. And I'm happy to tell you that if you saw the stakeholders meeting, all these demonstrations were made before the stakeholder. Critical stakeholders, security, IPAC, Interparty Advisory Council, and elders and leaders of religious groups under the auspices of also PLASIEC, what we call Plateau Advisory Consultative Committee on Election Security. We're all there from beginning, from even the inception of and the concept of using the voter verification. So it's still a work in progress. I can tell you that already we have started discussing on how we can get cheap devices that are programmed to our own limited within the scope of SIEC. Okay. It's an ongoing thing. We will improve. You remember, INEC came with the first time, what do we call it? And it could not work. And then now Beavers came in. It's an ongoing process. And I can assure you that we are confident that with what we have seen, that we will continue to improve on it.
Well, when we speak about technology like this, when INEC was speaking about this too before the elections, there was a lot of enthusiasm. People were really...
It will ensure transparency.
They were boisterous.
Accountability.
People were enthused about all of this. But at the end of the day...
Chamberlain, I will tell you that for truth, if you look at, when you assess the Beavers in terms of the activity by the different components, on the aspect of accreditation, the Beavers...
No, what I'm saying is, right, technology is supposed to at least improve the confidence of people in elections, because it's supposed to aid, at least to a very large extent, improve believability, accountability, and ensure people's vote really count.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what people saw with that election was not what they were said was going to happen. So with yours, because some of the criticism that we see and hear about the election was with logistics.
Yeah.
So you can have all these fantastic ideas about accreditation, the process, voting process itself, but late arrival of materials, deployments, their conduct on that day. So how do you, because all of these things could at least poo-poo some of the good works technology may intend to have on the day.
Yeah. The electoral process is not a one-institutional thing because of the cumbersome nature of the activities. So you need to involve different and critical other segment of the society. For instance, if you are talking about technology, you also look at the people that will be deployed to use the technology. You could have a very good technology and still have people who are incompetent, who are not properly trained, who are not properly deployed to use those. So it's once the two function properly, then you can now see the credibility of the process. But where you see the deployment affecting the technology, it may not necessarily mean that the technology is actually bad, but the deployment. So in terms of logistics also, for us, there were over 21,000 ad hoc staff, not to talk of security. And coming from the background of a state independent electoral commission, you can imagine the massive vehicles you are required to move. We had to engage unions. We had to use some institutions like plateau riders and all those. And once you deploy them, those activity is totally out of your control. You let that go. But one positive thing was that we had a very, very active situation room. And I was telling my friend that between 10 and 12 in the morning, if I tested my BP, it would have been 200 or something.
Why?
Because of the level of these organizations in terms of logistics. For us, PLASIEC, we are not saying the processes were very perfect. No. But we are saying at least we can give ourselves pass mark, that we were able to introduce innovation, we are able to manage the situation, we are able to improve the belief in PLASIEC. You know just very well, if you have the history of Plateau, our people are very responsive. If there were issues bordering on our activity, Plateau State there would have been a state of emergency. But for the first time in the history of election in just not local government, not a single incident of conflict. I was telling my friend, you know, Jos Plateau is in such a place that it's a miniature Nigeria, and anything just a small thing can just change the entire place. I was in a community that people will say, no, before you go, carry security people and go. I went there to greet because somebody lost his son, a high-profile Islamic, highly respected man, lost his first son. And I went there in the evening, and you could see the response from that community. It was unbelievable. So it means that if you can build confidence in institutions, if you can follow the process and open the space for media to see what you are doing, not to carry your files in your hands and be hiding things, people will believe you.
Is it true that if they appoint you, or maybe INEC chair or any electoral person, whoever appoints that person, whoever is the executive that appoints that person, the executive expects that the person must deliver in terms of he must or she must win the elections. So you have to do whatever you can to make sure the person wins.
I know. You know what this says?
Piper and the tune?
It says the tune.
Mm-hmm.
For us in Plateau, the level of independence we got from the executive and the legislature. And if you know the composition of the legislature completely is a different party from the executive. And the level of independence in the personality of the chief executive is quite different. I can tell you this. It's quite different. Maybe that's the reason why I am even here.
Your funding in no way is connected
not at all. Not at all. It has to go to the House of Assembly, which is 100% not his party. Okay. And before it gets to him. And the tremendous relationship we enjoy with the House of Assembly is unbelievable. Because like I was saying before, if you are appointed in an institution, the onus lies on you to be able to prove, to make people to believe that what you say you are doing by engaging them in all the processes.
Just from my curiosity, the funding for creating this software, where did it come from?
From the budget of the House of Assembly.
So the House of Assembly passed that budget and then sent you your bit as PLASIEC, and then you used it for this.
And they oversee the activities of the commission.
Okay. Just one more thing before you go. What would your advice be in terms of the human elements for handling elections, either logistics, basically, because that's where there's always a lot of problem with logistics. Yeah. What do you advise the national body?
What I will advise is that the level of engagement of the massive funds used in election, the engagement between National Union of Road Transport Workers should be sustained. But the discussions should start very early. It should start, usually the discussion comes at the later stage. And the union will tell you, that they have all the vehicles. They are good vehicles, everything excellent. So by the time you are deploying thousands and hundreds of thousands of vehicles that you are not even sure of the conditions of those vehicles. It will carry material, carry people. Before reaching the destination, the thing breaks down and you are struggling with other issues.
All right, Mr. Planji Sishak, Chairman, PLASIEC. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Thank you, my sister.
I thought you were going for a road walk.
I'm a field worker.
It's a field walker.
I'm a field worker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on today.
Oh, Chamberlain.